Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're looking at Lincoln wheat penny coins, made from 1909 to 1958. These old pennies have Lincoln on the front and wheat ears on the back. Some are special because of their age or small details that make them different. People collect them, and a few can be worth more than just 1 cent. The 1946 Lincoln wheat penny is a quietly remarkable piece of American coinage that holds far more significance than its copper shell suggests. Minted in the immediate aftermath of World War II, this coin emerged during a time of transition, optimism, and rebuilding. It was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which means it carries no mint mark beneath the date, and its presence today, in circulated condition, offers a direct link to one of the most pivotal eras in U.S. history. This coin features the enduring image of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, which had become instantly recognizable across the country since the series began. In 1909, Lincoln's bust, facing right, is worn but still visible, his thoughtful expression softened by years of use. Above his head, the motto "In God We Trust" remains legible, while the word liberty sits on the left side and the date 1946 appears clearly on the right. Though this coin has circulated for decades, it still retains its identity and historical importance. The reverse carries the famous wheat ears that give this series its nickname, the wheat penny. Though the design details have been worn down by circulation, you can still make out the outline of the 2 sheaves of wheat, the denomination 1 cent in bold, and the inscription United States of America, e pluribus unum arches above, representing the unity of the states. Just as America was reuniting and healing from the war, millions of these pennies were struck in 1946 as the U.S. economy began to stabilize and boom after the war years. Despite the high mintage, these coins are cherished today not just for their age, but for their symbolism. This was a coin passed through the hands of Americans coming home from the battlefield, starting new families, building homes, and dreaming of a better future. To hold a 1946 wheat penny is to hold a piece of that post-war spirit. In terms of value, a 1946 penny in circulated condition is generally modest, usually ranging from a few cents to a couple of dollars. Its value rises slightly if it has strong details, minimal discoloration, and no serious damage. But the real surprise lies in coins that were preserved exceptionally well. If a 1946 Lincoln wheat penny is found in mint state condition with full red luster, its value can jump to $50 or more. In higher grades, particularly those certified by professional grading services, the value can rise even higher, especially if the coin shows clean surfaces and sharp strikes. Though your coin is circulated, its story remains powerful. It may have been part of a child's allowance, used to buy a soda, or dropped into a vending machine during the golden age of American diners. It could have traveled in a soldier's pocket, been flipped during a decision, or tossed into a savings jar in a quiet Midwestern kitchen. Every scratch, smooth patch, or discoloration reflects its long journey through American lives and decades of change. Collectors often treasure these coins not just for their potential value, but for their connection to history. Many see them as humble yet noble artifacts from a time when America was redefining itself. It's easy to overlook these small copper pieces, but each one has a place in the larger story of the United States. They remind us of where we've been, what we've survived, and how far we've come. Even though your 1946 penny has been well used, that doesn't lessen its significance. In fact, for many collectors and history lovers, it adds to its authenticity. It is a real coin that lived a real life, and for those who look beyond pristine condition and focus on meaning, this penny is a true relic of an era when America was filled with hope, rebuilding its dreams one brick and one coin at a time. The 1920 Lincoln wheat penny, without a mint mark in circulated condition, is a coin with deep roots in American history. This piece was struck over a century ago at the Philadelphia Mint, a time when the United States was adjusting to the post-World War I era and moving into the Roaring Twenties. In 1920, more than 310 million of these pennies were minted in Philadelphia, making it one of the highest mintage years of the early Lincoln series. Despite its large production, a coin from this time still holds a special fascination, especially for collectors who appreciate coins that have passed through generations of hands. On the obverse, we see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. The details on circulated coins like this one may have softened over time, especially around Lincoln's jawline, hair, and coat, but the overall image remains strong. The date 1920 is typically still visible, and even in worn condition, the classic simplicity of the design shines through. The absence of a mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia, the oldest operating mint in the United States and the birthplace of many iconic American coins. Flipping over to the reverse, the wheat design frames the words 1 cent and United States of America. Though years of use have likely worn down the edges of the wheat stalks and softened the lettering, the design's symbolic strength remains. The two wheat ears represent the agricultural backbone of early 20th century America. Above, the Latin phrase "E pluribus unum" still reminds us of the country's ideals of unity. Even in circulated condition, this reverse side serves as a quiet tribute to the resilience and pride of the era. It came from dot in terms of value. Most 1920 Lincoln wheat pennies in circulated condition are modestly priced, typically worth anywhere from $1 to $3 depending on wear and overall appearance. However, value can climb if the coin is particularly well preserved for its age, showing stronger definition in Lincoln's features or sharper lettering on the reverse. Coins with fewer contact marks, deeper coloring, or even slight luster can attract more attention and sometimes reach up to $10 or $15 in collector markets. What truly stirs excitement among coin enthusiasts is the possibility of errors or unusual varieties. Although the 1920 penny is not widely known for dramatic mint errors, occasional examples of off-center strikes, die cracks, or repunched dates do exist. Such rare varieties can raise the value significantly, even reaching into the hundreds or thousands for well-documented cases in strong condition. While such finds are rare, it's always worth taking a closer look under magnification or comparing your coin with reference images online. The historical backdrop of this coin adds to its charm. The year 1920 marked a turning point in American life. The nation had just emerged from a devastating global war, and the mood was shifting from somber recovery to booming ambition. Women had just won the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. Prohibition had begun, jazz was taking over American nightlife. And in all of this, the humble penny was there, quietly changing hands in cities, small towns, and rural farms. It was part of everyday life, part of every pocket, register, and purse. Imagine where this particular penny might have been. It could have been used to buy a newspaper reporting the results of the 1920 presidential election. It may have dropped into the hand of a child buying penny candy or rolled across the counter at a hardware store selling tools for rebuilding a post-war home. This small copper coin has lived through the rise of radio, the Great Depression, to world wars, the civil rights movement, and the digital age. And yet here it is, still with us, bearing the same quiet dignity it had when it was first struck. The true treasure of a 1920 Lincoln wheat penny lies not just in its market value, but in its ability to connect us to our past. Each scratch and worn edge is part of its journey through American history. It is more than a coin. It is a living relic, a storyteller in copper, a survivor from a century that saw unimaginable change. Whether tucked into a coin folder or resting in a collector's hand, it continues to shine with the quiet strength of a time long past, offering us a glimpse into a world where even the 1911 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark is a powerful piece of early American coinage and one that carries a quiet but deeply fascinating story. Struck over a century ago at the Philadelphia Mint, this coin came into the world during a time of tremendous change in America. It predates to world wars, the Great Depression, the moon landing, and even the invention of television. This little copper coin may be small in size, but it is a direct link to a time when Theodore Roosevelt's vision of a stronger national identity was still shaping the country. Its worn surfaces and tiny dots are a testament to the many hands it has passed through and the many stories it has silently witnessed. On the obverse, you can still see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This coin was only the third year of issue in the Lincoln Cent series, which had debuted in 1909 to mark Lincoln's 100th birthday. Even in circulated condition, Lincoln's image is visible, though likely smoothed around the cheek and jawline. In God We Trust arcs above his head, liberty rests on the left side, and the date 1911 appears clearly on the right. Because there's no mint mark, we know this one came from Philadelphia, the oldest U.S. mint and the one responsible for the majority of coinage in those early decades. Flipping to the reverse, the coin shows the classic wheat ears that frame the denomination 1 cent. Though worn, the words United States of America and E pluribus unum are still visible, anchoring it to its heritage. The wheat stalks may be faded or flattened, and the field may have some surface spots or tiny imperfections, but every mark only adds to its character. Those little dots and signs of aging do not take away its story, they enrich it. When it comes to value, a 1911 Lincoln wheat penny in circulated condition typically ranges from $1 to $5, depending on the level of wear and how visible the features remain. Collectors love the early dates in this series, and 1911 is no exception. While it doesn't have the rarity of a 1909 SVDB or the shock value of a double die error, it is still over 100 years old and growing scarcer with every passing year. Coins like this are often forgotten in drawers, lost in fields, or tossed into jars and never seen again. Finding one still intact, with clear detail and historic charm, is always a pleasure for anyone who appreciates American history. Now, if this same coin were in uncirculated or mint state condition, the story would change dramatically. A 1911 Lincoln penny with full red luster and no wear can easily fetch several $100s, with top-graded examples soaring into the thousands. Collectors pay a premium for those early-date wheat pennies with sharp details and original surfaces, especially since so few have survived untouched by circulation. But even in its circulated state, your coin is part of a remarkable legacy. These were made of solid bronze, mostly copper with a bit of tin and zinc, giving them a warm, natural tone that ages beautifully over time. It's worth noting that many collectors today seek out coins that have character. The small dots you mentioned on the coin might be from oxidation or environmental exposure, and while they may lower the strict grading, they also mark it as genuine and well-traveled. Some even prefer coins like this because they represent the working class and everyday life more than the pristine, untouched examples hidden in vaults. Imagine the life this coin has lived. In 1911, it might have bought a newspaper, a stick of gum, or been dropped into a collection plate on a Sunday morning. It might have traveled across states in the pocket of a railroad worker or been saved in a child's piggy bank during the early 1900s. It circulated when horses still shared the streets with early automobiles and when telephones were a luxury, not a necessity. Every scratch and dent on the coin is like a fingerprint from another time, a silent reminder of how far we've come. For collectors who value history as much as condition, this 1911 Lincoln wheat penny is a treasured artifact. It's more than just currency, it is a witness to America's growth, preserved in copper and still whispering its story more than a century later. The 1935 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark in red shade condition is a striking and captivating piece for collectors, especially when it has maintained such a vivid and distinct tone through the decades. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which did not use a mint mark, this coin emerged during the latter part of the Great Depression, a time when even a single cent carried more weight than we can imagine today. It passed through the hands of people struggling to get by, people who valued every coin. Yet here it is almost 90 years later, preserved in a condition that still captures the eye. The red shade of this penny is where the real intrigue begins. Red in numismatics refers to the original color of the copper when the coin was first minted. It's rare for a coin this old to retain such a hue unless it has been carefully stored, away from moisture and oxidation. When you find a 1935 wheat penny with this reddish tone, even in a good or lightly circulated condition, it jumps out. The color alone raises both its visual appeal and its collector value. It indicates that the surfaces have not completely turned brown, a typical fate for older copper coins, and that perhaps this coin was tucked away early in its life or simply never passed through to many hands. Looking at the obverse, we see Abraham Lincoln's profile, sculpted by Victor David Brenner. On a red-shaded 1935 penny, the fine details of Lincoln's hair, cheekbone, and coat are likely more visible than on typical circulated examples. The inscriptions remain bold. The date, clearly stamped 1935, sits just below the bust and to the right, unmistakably placing this coin within a period of intense American hardship and resilience. The reverse features the wheat ears flanking. The denomination, with United States of America and E pluribus unum still clearly readable even if there's some light smoothing from circulation. In terms of mintage, the 1935 Philadelphia issue had over 245 million coins struck, so it is not the rarity of the mintage itself that brings this coin to the spotlight, but rather the preservation of its color and condition. Most circulated examples are worth a few cents to maybe $1 or $2. However, when the coin retains much of its red luster and shows fewer signs of wear, it becomes a different story entirely. Values for lightly circulated or red examples can climb into the $20 to $50 range, but here's where it gets exciting. Uncirculated, red gem examples, especially those graded at high mints state levels like MS65 or MS66, have sold at auctions for hundreds, sometimes well over $1,000. In one exceptional case, a pristine MS67 red 1935 Lincoln cent reached nearly $2,000 due to its brilliant color, flawless surfaces, and near-perfect strike. Though this specific coin is not uncirculated, its red tone makes it stand out. The market places a premium on any copper coin that retains this kind of vibrancy because it's rare and eye-catching. And while it might not reach the 5- or 6-figure mark without being in top mint state condition or having a major error, it still carries tremendous appeal and value for collectors looking for something with historical richness and unusual aesthetic quality. It's always worth taking a second look at these older wheat pennies for more than just color. While 1935 is not particularly known for dramatic errors, coins from this era sometimes feature small repunched mint marks, doubled dies, or minor die cracks that increase their desirability. A double die obverse showing light duplication in Lincoln's eye or lettering, or even a subtle die clash, could add significantly to the value. Collectors are often amazed at what's discovered under magnification. What's more powerful than the price tag, though, is the history this coin represents. Minted during Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal era, this penny may have been used to buy bread, candy, or a newspaper headline about massive public works programs or growing tensions overseas. The 1930s were a decade of hardship and transformation, and this little coin has made the journey all the way to today, retaining part of its original beauty and color. To hold a 1935 Lincoln wheat penny in red shade is to hold a moment in time, preserved almost miraculously. It's a tangible piece of the past that has outlasted wars, recessions, and revolutions in technology. It speaks to the durability of American craftsmanship and the lasting legacy of even the smallest items in our history. This penny, with its glowing copper tone, is not just a coin. It's a symbol of survival, of preservation, and of the fascinating stories hiding in plain sight inside a forgotten jar or drawer.
Next up we have
the 1989p Canadian half-dollar coin, though sometimes misattributed with a P mint mark, a notation more commonly associated with US coins, is part of Canada's long-running 50-cent series issued by the Royal Canadian Mint. Like other Canadian half-dollars from this era, it features iconic imagery and national symbolism, and is made primarily for collectors, as this denomination was not commonly used in everyday transactions during the late 20th century. The obverse of the coin bears the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machen. This effigy, used on Canadian coinage from 1965 to 1989, depicts the Queen wearing a tiara and facing right. The inscription around the portrait reads Elizabeth to D.G. Regina, which is an abbreviation for the Latin phrase Dei Gratia Regina, translating to by the grace of God, Queen. The portrait, clean and refined, symbolizes Canada's continued relationship with the British Crown and has become an iconic feature of Canadian coinage. On the reverse side of the 1989 half-dollar is the Canadian coat of arms, a design known for its rich symbolism and intricate detail. The central shield is divided into 5 parts, representing England, Scotland, Ireland, France, and the 3 maple leaves symbolizing Canada. Supporting the shield are the English lion and the Scottish unicorn, both crowned. Above the shield is a crowned lion holding a maple leaf, and beneath it is the motto Amari usque et de mer, which translates to from sea to sea. This elegant and detailed design is framed by the denomination 50 cents and the country name Canada, along with the year 1989. The coin is made of nickel, which replaced silver in earlier decades due to rising metal costs. This nickel composition gives the coin a bright, silvery appearance and also makes it relatively durable. However, as with many circulated nickel coins, it can develop scratches and small abrasions over time. A 1989 Canadian half-dollar and some scratches condition suggests moderate circulation. The major design elements remain visible and distinct, but the coin may show light to moderate surface wear, small nicks, or dullness from handling. And contact with other coins, the Canadian 50-cent piece had already become a rarity in everyday circulation by the 1980s. Though it remained legal tender and was still minted yearly, it was mostly collected, hoarded, or simply overlooked in favor of more commonly used denominations like the quarter or dollar coin. This limited use in commerce means that circulated examples like the 1989 coin are more likely to have come from rolls distributed by banks or coin sets broken up over the years. The coin has a diameter of 27.13 millimeters and a weight of 6.9 grams, with a reeded edge. These specifications remained consistent throughout most of the modern era of Canadian coinage. The striking details of the coat of arms on the reverse are often best appreciated in coins that have been well preserved, although even coins with moderate wear, like the 1989 half-dollar in scratched condition, can still display the core beauty and depth of the design. While not rare or highly valuable in circulated condition, the 1989 half-dollar holds appeal for collectors seeking to complete a run of Canadian 50-cent coins. For some, this coin represents a continuation of Canadian tradition, as the coat of arms design has remained largely unchanged for decades. For others, it serves as a nostalgic piece, a reminder of a time when these coins were still produced annually even if they were seldom used. Collectors interested in preserving a 1989 half-dollar in decent condition should store it in a protective coin flip, capsule, or folder. Coins should ideally be handled by their edges to avoid fingerprints and further surface damage. If the scratches are mild, the coin may still hold some value to a casual collector or as part of a broader historical or thematic collection. In conclusion, the 1989 Canadian half-dollar coin reflects Canada's enduring use of national symbols and royal portraiture. Its currency, though it has seen circulation and carries signs of use, its detailed design and mid-century charm make it a respectable addition to any numismatic collection. While its monetary value may be modest, the coin represents a historical moment in Canadian minting, bridging the gap between the practical utility of coinage and its cultural significance. The 1955 Lincoln Wheat penny, without a mint mark in good condition, is one of those classic American coins that continues to captivate collectors and history enthusiasts alike. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint, this coin carries no mint mark, which was standard for Philadelphia issues at the time. But even without that small detail, this penny holds enormous weight in terms of historical context and collector appeal. The 1950s marked a period of post-war prosperity and cultural change in the United States, and this penny circulated during a time when Americans were experiencing both technological innovation and Cold War tension. Every time this coin changed hands, it was part of someone's everyday life in a rapidly modernizing country. The obverse of the 1955 Lincoln penny features the enduring bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Even in good condition, the portrait remains recognizable, with Lincoln's solemn expression, his hairline, and the iconic inscription of "In God We Trust" arching above his head. The date 1955 sits clearly to the right, with Liberty on the left, forming the instantly familiar layout that defined the wheat penny for decades. On the reverse, the coin shows the classic wheat ears framing the denomination 1 cent, with the phrases United States of America and E pluribus unum standing out despite circulation wear. Now, when we talk about the 1955 Lincoln penny, it's impossible not to mention the famous 1955 double die error, which has become one of the most sought-after and legendary coin errors in all of numismatics. In that famous variety, the doubling on the obverse lettering is so strong that it appears almost like a blurry shadow, most notably in Liberty, "In God We Trust," and the date. That error can turn a simple penny into a jaw-dropping six-figure prize. Some of those rare error coins in mint state have sold for over $100,000, and even heavily circulated examples can fetch several $1,000s depending on eye appeal. But here's the twist. Just because your 1955 penny doesn't show that extreme doubling doesn't mean it's worthless. Many collectors are still hunting for clean, well-preserved examples of the standard 1955 issue. In good condition, like the one in question, the coin may carry a modest value of 5 to 10 cents, slightly above face value. But when found in higher grades or with exceptional eye appeal, such as a strong red tone or sharp details, its worth can jump. In mint state red condition, these coins can command values from $30 to several hundred, and if certified by top grading services, prices can soar even higher, especially when there's high demand from collectors looking to complete their wheat penny sets. Even the regular 1955 coin carries interest because of the notoriety of the doubled die. Many collectors new to the hobby will come across a 1955 penny and immediately wonder if it's the famous one, prompting them to inspect it more closely and often start their journey into coin collecting. This added layer of intrigue keeps the 1955 issue in constant focus, even when it's not an error variety. Condition is always important. This coin being in good condition suggests that it has circulated for some time, showing moderate wear on Lincoln's cheek, jaw, and coat, with some smoothing of the wheat stalks on the reverse. Yet despite the wear, it still tells its story proudly. The design is intact, the inscriptions are legible, and it still holds its coppery essence, especially if there's any hint of original red remaining on the surface. Holding this coin is like holding a relic of American culture during a decade that shaped the nation's identity. It's more than a piece of metal. It's a witness to the rise of television, the building of the interstate highway system, and the dawn of the space race. The 1955 penny was spent on gas when it cost 20 cents a gallon, or used in a vending machine that gave you a Coke in a glass bottle. These small coins were everywhere, but very few have survived in collectible condition with as much personality as this one. So whether it's the excitement of possibly spotting a double die or simply appreciating the beauty of a well-preserved mid-century Lincoln penny, the 1955 wheat penny remains a fan favorite and an absolute must for any collector building a complete historical set. Even in good condition, it holds value beyond money. It represents time, history, and a connection to an America that was bold, hopeful, and on the move. The 1973 Canadian half-dollar coin, without a mint mark, in circulated condition, is a commemorative issue that holds both historical and numismatic interest. Unlike most regular coinage, this particular year's 50-cent piece marks the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or CMP, making it one of the more recognizable and collectible half-dollars produced by the Royal Canadian Mint. The obverse features the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machen. This portrait was used on Canadian coins from 1965 to 1989 and shows the Queen wearing a tiara, facing right. Around the edge is the Latin inscription Elizabeth to D.G. Regina, which translates to Elizabeth II by the grace of God, Queen. In circulated condition, this side may show wear, particularly on the facial features and hair detail, but the overall likeness remains identifiable. The reverse design of the 1973 half-dollar is what sets it apart. Instead of the usual Canadian coat of arms, this coin displays an image of a mounted RCMP officer in full ceremonial dress. The rider is shown upright on a horse, facing left, with a lance held vertically in his right hand. The horse is well detailed, and beneath it are the dates 1873 to 1973, commemorating a century of the RCMP's service to Canada. Around the edge are the words Canada and 50 cents. The initials of the designer, Paul Cederberg, appear near the base of the design. The coin is composed of nickel. As silver had been removed from circulating half-dollars after 1967, it weighs 6.9 grams and has a diameter of 27.13 millimeters. Its edge is reeded, and like most Canadian coins of the period, it was minted in Ottawa, hence the absence of a visible mint mark, which is typical for Canadian circulation coins. Being in circulated condition means the coin has passed through everyday transactions and shows visible signs of handling. This includes surface scratches, smoothing of the finer details, and possibly some discoloration or dulling of the metal. For the 1973 RCMP half-dollar, high points like the horse's mane, the officer's face and uniform, and the Queen's portrait are usually the first areas to show wear. Even so, the coin remains fully legible and its design recognizable, making it a worthy addition to a circulated collection or as a historical reference piece. The 1973 RCMP half-dollar was issued in both regular and special collector formats. The circulation version, such as this one, was minted in large quantities. While not particularly rare, it has become increasingly less common in everyday circulation due to its commemorative nature and because the 50-cent denomination has not been widely used in Canada since the 1970s. As many of these coins were set aside by collectors or the general public upon release due to their unique design. In terms of value, circulated examples of the 1973 half-dollar typically have modest monetary worth, generally ranging from face value up to a few dollars depending on condition. However, their real value lies in their cultural and historical importance. They mark a key anniversary for one of Canada's most iconic national institutions, the RCMP, and reflect the style and sentiment of early 1970s commemorative coinage. Collectors often appreciate this coin for its distinctive imagery and the way it breaks from the standard series. The mounted police design is among the most recognized motifs in Canadian coin history, and it stands as a reminder of the country's law enforcement legacy and the symbolism the RCMP holds in Canadian identity. For long-term preservation, even a circulated coin like this one benefits from proper storage. Keeping it in a 2x2 cardboard coin holder or a protective plastic capsule will prevent further wear and environmental damage. It's important to avoid cleaning circulated coins, as this can lower their value and obscure their original details. In conclusion, the 1973 Canadian half-dollar commemorating the centennial of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is more than just a coin, it's a piece of national heritage. While it may be worn from circulation, it still tells a story of service, tradition, and Canadian pride. Its distinctive design and unique place in Canada's numismatic history make it a valuable item for collectors who appreciate coins not just for their metal, but for the meaning they carry. The 1980 Canadian half-dollar coin, though noted here with a D mint mark more commonly associated with United States coinage, refers to what is likely a 1980 Canadian 50-cent piece produced by the Royal Canadian Mint. Canadian coins, including the half-dollar, do not generally use visible mint marks to designate origin, unlike their American counterparts. All standard Canadian coins from this period were minted in Ottawa unless otherwise stated for collector's issues. This particular coin is part of a series that is both historically significant and increasingly uncommon in daily circulation. The obverse of the coin features a regal portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. This version of the Queen's effigy was designed by Arnold Machin and was used on Canadian coinage from 1965 until 1989. It portrays her wearing a tiara, facing right, and is surrounded by the Latin inscription Elizabeth to D.G. Regina, which means Elizabeth II by the grace of God. Queen. The portrait is dignified and formal, representing Canada's status as a constitutional monarchy and member of the Commonwealth. On the reverse of the coin is the Canadian coat of arms, a complex and elegant design that symbolizes Canada's heritage and unity. The arms incorporate emblems representing the founding nations: England 3 lions, Scotland lion rampant, Ireland harp, and France fleur-de-lis, along with 3 maple leaves to represent Canada. The shield is flanked by the crowned lion of England and the unicorn of Scotland, with a crowned lion holding a maple leaf above. Beneath is the national motto, Amori Usque ad Mare, meaning from sea to sea. Around the edges are inscribed the words Canada, the denomination 50 cents, and the year 1980. The coin is composed of nickel and weighs 6.9 grams, with a diameter of 27.13 millimeters and a reeded edge. The use of nickel instead of silver had become standard by this time due to the economic shifts and rising metal costs. In previous decades, this metal makes the coin relatively durable, though in circulated condition, it often shows signs of wear, including minor abrasions, a duller surface, and sometimes loss of luster. Circulated condition for a coin like this typically means it has been used in everyday transactions, passed through multiple hands, and exposed to elements that slightly degrade its detail. The 1980 Canadian half-dollar was not produced in vast quantities compared to other denominations like the nickel or quarter, making it less familiar to many Canadians even at the time of issue. In fact, the 50-cent piece had fallen out of favor in general commerce, and although it was minted annually, it saw minimal public use. Many Canadians, even today, may have never encountered a 50-cent coin in circulation. As a result, most existing examples were either collected intentionally or stored by banks and coin enthusiasts. Even in circulated condition, the 1980 half-dollar retains its appeal for numismatists interested in completing full-year sets or in collecting Canadian denominations that have become less common. While it may not hold significant monetary value unless in uncirculated or proof condition, it serves as a piece of Canada's coinage history, representing the traditional style and stately symbolism used throughout the latter half of the 20th century. Handling a coin like this, especially one in circulated condition, reminds collectors of the practical life coins once had passing through shops, cash drawers, and wallets before becoming sidelined by more popular denominations and eventually withdrawn from frequent use. The coin's weight, metal feel, and classic design offer a tactile and visual connection to a quieter, slower period in Canada's economic and numismatic history. Proper storage is key to preserving even a circulated coin. Although it already bears the marks of circulation, further exposure to air, moisture, and skin oils can cause deterioration. A 2x2 coin holder, archival quality coin flip, or a plastic capsule are suitable ways to store and protect it for the long-term. In summary, the 1980 Canadian half-dollar coin in circulated condition might not be a showpiece in a high-end collection, but it is still a charming and historically rooted piece. Its enduring design and symbolic richness give it character, and for anyone with an appreciation for Canadian history and heritage, it serves as a humble yet important artifact. Its circulated condition does not detract from its story, rather, it enhances it by adding a sense of real-world history and lived use to its already stately design. The 1977 Canadian half-dollar coin without a mint mark in good condition is a representative example of mid to late 20th century Canadian coinage. This coin, struck at the Royal Canadian Mint, features the designs that became standard on the -1 cent piece during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, while the 50-cent denomination was still officially produced. Its circulation was declining during this era, making the coin more of a collectible item than a commonly used piece of currency in daily transactions. On one side of the coin is the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, facing right. This version of her effigy was created by Arnold Machin and used on Canadian coins from the mid-1960s to the late 1980s. It shows the Queen with a serene expression, wearing a tiara. The words around the edge of the coin read Elizabeth II, D.G. Regina, which is a Latin abbreviation meaning Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. In a coin that has been kept in good condition, the facial features of the Queen remain visible, with only minor signs of wear from handling or circulation. The tiara, hair details, and the lettering are generally sharp and readable, though slight softening of high points is expected due to age. The reverse side of the coin bears the coat of arms of Canada, which has long been a traditional design on the Canadian 50-cent piece. The coat of arms is a detailed heraldic symbol that includes a central shield bearing symbols representing the founding nations of Canada, England, Scotland, Ireland, and France. Above the shield sits a royal crown, while on either side stand the lion and unicorn drawn from British heraldry. Below the shield is a scroll bearing the national motto Amori Usque ad Mare, which translates to from sea to sea. The level of detail on the reverse is typically well preserved on coins in good condition, though slight wear on the higher parts of the relief is expected. This 50-cent coin from 1977 is made of nickel, which had replaced silver in the composition of Canadian coins after the late 1960s. It has a diameter of 27.13 millimeters and weighs 6.9 grams. The edge of the coin is reeded, providing both tactile and visual texture. The coin does not bear a mint mark, as it was minted in Ottawa, the standard production site for circulating Canadian coins at the time. Mint marks are generally used only for coins struck at branch facilities or special issues, so their absence is normal on coins like this one. In the context of collecting and valuation, the 1977 Canadian half-dollar is not rare or particularly valuable in the market for circulated coins. It holds a small premium over face value depending on condition, but is mostly valued by hobbyists and those with an interest in national symbolism and numismatics. However, its significance lies in its role as part of Canada's regular coinage tradition, its emblematic imagery, and the gradual disappearance of the 50-cent coin from everyday usage in later decades. This makes coins like the 1977 edition more commonly found in collections rather than change purses. Coins in good condition like this one often show moderate luster, minimal surface corrosion, and clear visibility of key design elements. A good condition classification generally indicates that the coin has seen some circulation but has been well preserved, showing no major damage, deep scratches, or discoloration beyond light surface wear. The fields of the coin, which refer to the flat areas that are not raised designs, might have minor contact marks but retain a reasonable amount of original smoothness and clarity. Preserving the coin's current state requires proper storage and handling. It is best to keep the coin in a protective sleeve or album page made of non-PVC materials to avoid chemical reactions that can discolor or corrode the surface over time. Coins should be handled by the edges, not the faces, to avoid fingerprint, oils, and wear. Cleaning should be avoided altogether, as even gentle cleaning can remove patina and lower the coin's appeal to collectors. The production of the 50-cent coin in 1977 continued a long-standing tradition in Canadian coinage. However, its usage in everyday commerce had begun to wane significantly by the late 20th century. Most Canadians rarely encountered 50-cent coins in their regular transactions, as they were not widely distributed through banks or businesses. Nevertheless, the Royal Canadian Mint continued to strike them for collectors and ceremonial purposes, and many Canadians saved them for their symbolic value or to complete a coin set. This coin provides a tangible connection to a time when Canada's coinage still regularly celebrated national heritage and symbols in standard currency. The coat of arms is not only a design element, but a reflection of the country's identity and values. For many collectors, owning a 1977 half-dollar is not about financial gain, but about preserving a piece of national history in a durable and visually rich form. Overall, the 1977 Canadian half-dollar, without a mint mark in good condition, serves as a classic example of Canadian numismatic tradition. It reflects both the enduring legacy of Queen Elizabeth II's long reign and the Canadian government's commitment to producing coins that symbolize the unity and diversity of the country. While not rare or highly valuable in monetary terms, its importance to those interested in coins, history, or Canadian culture remains significant. The 1972 Canadian half-dollar coin is part of Canada's regular circulation coinage, minted by the Royal Canadian Mint. This coin belongs to the post-silver era of Canadian coinage, where the composition had shifted entirely to nickel due to the rising cost of silver. It reflects the typical characteristics and standards of Canadian half-dollars minted during the 1970s, offering historical value and consistent design rather than precious metal content. The obverse of the 1972 half-dollar features the second effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machen. This portrait depicts the Queen wearing a tiara, facing right, and is surrounded by the Latin inscription Elizabeth to D.G. Regina, which stands for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. On a circulated coin like this, the Queen's portrait may show smoothing or light wear, especially on finer features such as the facial profile and hair detail, but the inscription generally remains legible. The reverse side of the coin is adorned with the Canadian coat of arms, a highly detailed and symbolic design. The arms include the English lion and Scottish unicorn supporters, a shield divided into 5 sections representing England, Scotland, Ireland, and France, and a central 3 maple leaf motif representing Canada. Above the shield is a crowned lion holding a Union flag, and below is the motto Amore Usque ad Mare, meaning from sea to sea. In circulated condition, this side often exhibits softening of the intricate details, especially around the lion, crown, and smaller elements of the shield, but the core design usually remains visible enough to be appreciated. The 1972 Canadian half-dollar was struck in nickel, giving it a silvery appearance without the intrinsic value of silver. It has a diameter of 29.72 millimeters, a mass of 11.66 grams, and a reeded edge. While not particularly rare, these coins are less commonly seen in everyday transactions today, as the 50-cent denomination is no longer frequently used in circulation. In circulated condition, the 1972 half-dollar typically exhibits a variety of wear patterns. Common signs include surface scratches, loss of luster, and darkened areas from handling or oxidation over the decades. Some coins may have light spotting or rim nicks, but as long as the primary designs are visible and the coin retains its shape, it maintains collector interest, especially among those completing date sets or interested in Canadian historical coinage. Although the coin does not carry significant monetary value above face in this condition, it remains desirable to hobbyists, particularly those interested in coins from Queen Elizabeth II's reign. The 1972 issue falls into a period of Canadian history when the country was developing a more distinct national identity in its symbols and currency. Following the centennial celebrations of 1967, the Canadian half-dollar series from this era reflects the nation's cultural pride and commitment to tradition. While changes to the coat of arms design would eventually occur in later decades, the 1972 version maintains the heraldic style used for much of the 20th century. Many collectors appreciate the artistic intricacy of the coat of arms, especially on higher-grade examples. Even in circulated condition, the coin serves as a solid representation of the era's minting practices and Canada's symbolic heritage. In summary, A 1970 to Canadian half-dollar in circulated condition is a piece of everyday history. It reflects a time when coinage still played a strong visual role in reinforcing national identity, though it may not shine as brightly as it once did, and some details may be softened with time and use. It remains a respectable and worthwhile addition to any collection centered on Canadian numismatics. The 1971 Canadian half-dollar coin, part of the country's long-running series of 50-cent pieces, is a coin that continues the traditional design featuring Canada's national coat of arms, while not as commonly encountered in everyday circulation. Today, this coin reflects a time when larger denomination coins were more actively used in transactions. The 1971 issue carries forward the design and dimensions introduced in previous decades, serving as a link between older, silver-based coinage and more modern, base metal currency. On the obverse, the coin bears the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II. By 1971, the portrait had been updated from the earlier youthful version to a more mature depiction. This updated design, by Arnold Machen, shows the Queen wearing a tiara and facing right. The inscription surrounding the portrait reads Elizabeth to D.G. Regina, which is Latin for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. In circulated condition, the portrait may display signs of wear, especially on the high points such as the Queen's cheek, hair, and crown. Light scratches or smooth areas may be visible depending on how much the coin has been handled. The reverse side of the coin features the Canadian coat of arms, an intricate and symbolic design that highlights the historical and cultural roots of Canada. It includes the quartered shield with symbols of England, 3 lions, Scotland lion rampant, Ireland harp, and France fleur-de-lis, topped by the royal crown. The shield is flanked by a lion holding a Union Jack flag and a unicorn holding the flag of Royal France. Beneath the coat of arms is a scroll with the national motto, Amori Usque ad Mare, which means from sea to sea. The legend Canada 1971 and 50 cents encircle the bottom. Due to circulation, the fine details of the coat of arms, especially in the supporters, shield, and the crown, may show signs of flattening. The inscriptions generally remain legible, although light wear and minor discoloration are expected in a circulated coin of this age. Surface marks such as bag marks, edge nicks, or general dulling of the original mint luster are also common in this condition. The 1971 half-dollar is composed of 100% nickel, weighing approximately 8.1 grams and measuring 27.13 millimeters in diameter. Unlike earlier issues made of silver prior to 1968, this coin has a more magnetic composition with a slightly different luster and feel. The switch from silver to nickel occurred as part of broader economic changes affecting coin production, particularly in response to rising silver prices and the need for more durable and cost-effective metals. Nickel coins, like the 1971 half-dollar, tend to age differently than silver ones. Over time, the surface can develop a matte finish or acquire light spotting due to oxidation. Nickel is also harder than silver, so while it resists deep scratches more effectively, it often accumulates more minor abrasions from handling. The reeded edge typically remains well-defined unless the coin has been heavily worn or improperly stored. Although not a rare coin by mintage, the 1971 Canadian half-dollar is less commonly seen in daily circulation today. Many of these coins were pulled from change and saved in drawers or collections due to their unusual size and historical appeal. Their larger size and heraldic reverse make them visually striking, particularly for collectors interested in Canadian coinage or national symbolism. While half-dollar coins continue to be issued by the Royal Canadian Mint, they are not regularly used in everyday transactions, and production numbers are significantly lower than for smaller denominations. This has increased the numismatic interest in earlier dates like 1971, especially those in higher grades or with unique toning. In summary, the 1971 Canadian half-dollar coin in circulated condition offers a solid representation of Canada's mid-20th century numismatic design. It bridges the transition from silver to base metal coinage and maintains traditional imagery through the continued use of the coat of arms. While its value in circulated condition remains modest, the coin holds historical significance and aesthetic appeal, particularly for those who appreciate Canadian history and classic coin designs.